you're such a perv. Like, you're so disappointing. You're just so, like, typical pervy.
And?
You're not even surprising anymore.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Decade Old podcast. My name is Conor Keary and I'm joined by Chloe Shannon.
Hiya.
Karen Sullivan.
Hi.
And Richard Travers.
Hello!
So we've tweaked the format a little bit for our episodes going forward. Instead of doing an episode per month, we're going to be taking it in quarters. So in this episode, we're going to be reviewing the fourth quarter of 2005. And the 4 films we've chosen for this episode are Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Brokeback Mountain and Serenity. And we're going to start it off with Goblet of Fire. So Richard, take it away.
Goblet of Fire is the 4th year of Harry Potter's in school. Like our 4th years, he doesn't go to class, he just fucks around in random events, basically, like a bit like TY. But it's not TY, it's more like the tournament arc from Shonen, as in like they get 2 other schools we didn't know existed, one from France, one from made up Countryistan, and they do this, is it the Triwizard tournament? No, it's the Goblet of Fire. The Goblet of Fire, they do that, and somehow Harry Potter gets his name. It's like end of year students, but he gets thrown in even though he's not an end of year student, and they're like, fine, that's grand, keep him in anyway. And he does all this mad shit like fighting dragons, fighting mermaids and all this shit, and then it turns out that Twilight dies, Voldemort comes back, and there's a surprisingly happy ending for all that sad shit that just happened there.
Well, I'm changing my opinion on what's my favourite Harry Potter movie. I think it was way back in episode 2, maybe, that we reviewed Prisoner of Azkaban. And I liked it, but you all gave out to me that I didn't, because I didn't like it unconditionally.
No, because you picked so many holes in it that it was kind of like,
do
you actually like this?
Perfectly valid holes, though.
I know, perfectly valid hole I'd
but
like
it's
to
like
pick.
saying, Connor, we really love you, but like you've one good thing about you and 50,000 bad things.
No, there are many good things about Prisoner of Azkaban. I just think Goblet of Fire is better, which surprised me because ever since I saw this movie in the cinema, I've always had this one pegged as the one I didn't like. But going back and watching it again has completely changed my opinion on it. I would say this is now my favourite Harry Potter movie.
I disagree. This is the point where I think I actually got sick of Harry Potter. It's the film that was just like...
The films?
That was a bit drawn out.
Yeah.
This was the one that was a bit drawn out for me.
Really?
Yeah, even the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, although I was watching it with a load of little kids, and I was like, oh my god, just end. I liked it watching it the second and third and fourth time, but the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, oh my god, this is just too long. This is just too drawn out.
Okay. I mean, the one problem with the Harry Potter movies, okay, there's a few, but the one thing that always sticks with me is they have this remarkable ability to be incredibly long but still feel like they're shortchanging the books. And that's always been a recurring problem.
Well, that's because starting, like, up until the 3rd one, all the books were quite small.
Yeah.
But by the time you actually got to the 4th one, the 4th book is one of the biggest. It's like a pretty...
It was by far the biggest at the time.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you always want to have to leave stuff out.
Yeah, and I thought they did leave stuff out, but I thought they did pretty much as good a job as they could. Maybe they could have been a little bit better.
Well, like,
no, I didn't
leave
really,
stuff out.
It's long, but I didn't feel its pace, you know? Like Brokeback Mountain, which we'll talk about in a while.
Yeah,
we
that
all
was
felt
long.
that film's length, but not so much this one, at least not.
Flawless entry.
So this is the entry in the franchise where things get a little bit more serious and it gets a little bit more adult.
It gets a bit scary.
Voldemort comes back, sure.
But even before that, it's a lot darker than...
I think each one got a bit darker,
Yeah.
didn't it, really?
Well, it never really gets a whole lot darker than this, I don't think.
The last
but
one was
until
fairly
now,
grim
they
dark.
all kind of got a little bit darker each time.
But I think it sort of peaks here in terms of darkness.
Well, they don't have Bella the Edge jumping around in her big black suit and all that. So they're like the 6th or 5th one, don't they?
I can't remember, guys. Did you read the books?
Yes.
Well, I read them up until this one when I was a kid.
I read all
the first 3.
I read all 7, and I tried rereading the books, and I made it as far as this one, got about 100 pages into this book, when I was like, I actually don't want to reread Harry Potter anymore.
You
and
didn't like
stopped.
it?
I think I just got sick of it.
How did Cedric Diggory's death affect you when you were a kid?
Not at all.
But really?
I was expecting it, so I was like, okay.
I couldn't
I
believe
thought
it.
it kind of happened really fast.
I couldn't believe it when it happened. When I read it in the book.
It really happened really fast.
I don't think I was that attached to Cedric. It's especially like movie Cedric. I care very little for movie.
Okay,
Cedric.
here's the thing about
he's so much hotter though in that than in Twilight.
Oh, he is a lot better looking in Harry Potter, but I still don't.
He's a good bit younger though.
Yeah.
Like he's years
Much
younger.
Much hotter.
Okay, here's the thing about Cedric Diggory. He is a character that was made to be killed off. Like, no questions about it. But they kind of missed a trick by not having him in the third film.
Should he not have been introduced beforehand? So
He
felt
was.
Something.
He was in the third book. He was a minor character. And then he becomes a more important character in the fourth
I don't remember
book.
in the movie.
Yeah, he wasn't in the movie.
They didn't bother casting him, which is a stupid
Actually,
decision.
the thing is, Robert Pattinson, the actor, actually might have been in the third film. But I don't think he was credited as Cedric Diggory. But Cedric Diggory, the character, actually did feature prominently enough.
And odds are, if you look at it, he was probably in a completely different house as, like, a background character in what Cedric Diggory actually is.
Oh, speaking of houses, I don't think we did this the last time. Where did we land? Which house do each of us fit into?
In my old college, everyone says I was a Hufflepuff because they did heritage studies.
Guys, Richard, which house does he go into?
Hufflepuff, because I did heritage studies, and that's what everyone said back in Castlebar.
I don't know really.
I find hard church because everyone just wants to be a Gryffindor and not Slytherin.
Okay, what about Gloria?
I hope I wouldn't be in Slytherin.
You'd be in Slytherin.
I think Hufflepuff or Gryffindor.
Ah, no, you'd be
in Ravenclaw because they're the dry shites, aren't they?
Okay, here's what I'm thinking. Hufflepuff, no offense. Gryffindor for Gloria. Ravenclaw for Karen. And Ravenclaw for me.
Slytherin for Fitzy. You have that evil tendency. You have that slight bit of evil just enough but had to like, we better put you in Slytherin just in case.
It's just the eyes.
A bit like Luna. Like, I mean, she's not evil, but I thought she was a bit odd, so they put her in Slytherin.
I always wanted to be in Ravenclaw. But everyone says I should be in Slytherin, both though in reality I'd probably be in
dry
Hufflepuff.
shites though.
God, I've never actually met anyone who wanted to be in Ravenclaw.
Dry
Well,
shites.
Ravenclaw's where the smart people are. Gryffindor would be my second choice, but
never
Ravenclaw.
met some people always wanted to be in Gryffindor, or even if they thought they were slightly evil, Slytherin.
Guys, which is more outlandish? The idea of Quidditch or the idea of Ireland winning a World Cup?
I think what's the most crazy thing is it's the 422nd World Cup. World Cups happen every 4 years. That means they've been having Quidditch World Cup for almost 200 years.
Well,
someone did the math. Jesus.
2,000 years.
That might work, because isn't it supposed to be an ancient society that's never really evolved? I mean, they still wear old cloaks and stuff.
And it's
but it looks
England.
more like 18th, early 19th century than 2,000 years ago.
It could have existed 2,000 years ago.
And if England are hosting this World Cup, that means they got kicked out of it at some stage, just like the Rugby World Cup that's happening this year.
Now, yeah.
They got kicked out of their own
Very
tournament.
prophetic.
If it's 2,000 years old, does that mean Jesus did Quidditch?
I don't think this is in the film. I don't even think it says who won, but in the book, the ending of the game in the book makes no sense. It's the thing that exposed Quidditch to me as making no sense.
The fact that Ireland won, but the Bulgarian caught the snitch.
Yeah.
But it does make sense, because if you don't catch a snitch, the game won't end. And Ireland were leading by so much that the Bulgarians were like, I'm catching this fucking
Surely
thing.
he could have caught up with Bulgaria though.
No,
with Ireland.
probably not, because I think there's a substantial enough difference. And there have been games of Quidditch that have gone on for years, and I think the Bulgarians were like, yeah, I have a Triwizard tournament to get to fuck this shit.
Are you really saying that a professional sports team who got into like the peak, the highest, like the final of the World Cup, would just get so sick of it and so tired that they'd throw in the towel?
I think come on, imagine a hurling game or a rugby game or a soccer game went on for years.
But this hadn't gone on for years. This had gone on for the most hours. I mean, think about it. Imagine if by some miracle Ireland, the football team, made it into the World Cup final. And after a couple of hours, it went into like extra time or something. They just threw up their hands. They threw up their hands and went.
But it's more than extra time. There's a certain amount of time when a football game ends. There's no such thing in Quidditch until someone catches that stupid flying goal ball.
The Triwizard tournament, though, is fucked. I mean,
it's
really
completely messed up.
Yeah.
Just the callous disregard for the safety of the students they have. You know, kidnapping them and tying them to the bottom of a lake for the purposes of competition.
How did that work actually? Like, were they told they were going to be tied to a bottom
They
of a
were
lake?
called the night before.
God, here's this roofie up in the lake.
Well, it is ridiculous, but like it's a movie.
So I did say that at one point this film was my least favourite, even though it's now my favourite. But I
So
think
what is it that changed your mind?
the fact that I think the screenplay for this film is by far the best screenplay so far. I haven't seen the later films in a while, but at this point, as far as these first 4 films go, I think it's by far the best. In fact, I didn't know this until I did a bit of research, but all of the screenplays were written by a guy called, I think his name is Steve Close. He wrote The Fabulous Baker Boys, which launched the career of Michelle Pfeiffer, which is a great film. And then he had another film, I forget what it's called, I think Michael Douglas plays a teacher in it, which was a total bomb. It kind of fucked up his career. But then he found a second life writing the Harry Potter movies, and he did it for over a decade. I don't know, I just think the dialogue here, it's loads of wit and panache, and the dialogue, it kind of feels real. If this feels how teenagers talk, there's loads of funny scenes and stuff. Like, you know the dancing scene where what's her name is teaching the guys at like, that's classic, and there's fucking whistling in the background and stuff.
I did like that scene at all.
So yeah, it's just far more palatable, I think, than all this really stiff, stoic dialogue that these kids would never say, and loads of bad attempts at gross out humour.
What's all the long hair though? Is 2005 just the year of guys with long hair?
The emo fad is coming in.
All the Weasleys have long hair, and so does
yeah.
Harry, and it's just a bit like, did they just decide that for that entire... Because it's meant to be, between each movie's only meant to be a summer. They all grew their hair very, very long during that summer.
Magic.
Just saying.
Well, like their hair could grow kind of fast. Like that's almost 2-3 months over the summer. Although normally you'd have your hair cut in the summer, wouldn't you, if you're a guy, like, because it'd be hotter weather.
I haven't cut my hair since, I think, before the summer.
It doesn't look that long. It just looks great.
Yeah, it doesn't look long at all. I haven't cut my hair in about 2 years.
I haven't shaved my pubes in a month.
Didn't need to know that. Really didn't need to know that.
Harry, I think, is a better character in this film, anyway, than he's ever been. Because finally he feels like a real person. Like, basically, first film onwards until the third one, he was just a Mary Sue.
He was
yes and no. He was perfect, and everyone loved him, and he was cute and cuddly, and he said things, and he had his wand, and he did things with it.
I know things I could do with my wand.
But I mean, here they finally, and I love this section in the book as well. Just things like he's dealing with all this petty bullshit where people are wearing these badges saying Potter stinks and stuff, and he's fine. This is where he
gets kind of pissed off.
Yeah, and he finally like lashes out and just sort of,
But Harry doesn't help the situation at all with Ron in the slightest. Like, Ron knows full well that Sirius is in hiding. When he's talking to him in the fire and Ron's like asking who you talking to, why doesn't Harry just goes, oh, I was talking to, like,
Well, because they were fighting.
Yeah, but still,
What if Malfoy's around an invisibility cloak or something? Because so
Malfoy
many people accidentally overhear stuff in the Harry Potter films.
Oh, Malfoy still can't act to save his life, and he never could. He never got any better.
He was always grand. I never had problems with Malfoy.
Richard, he's the worst of the lot by far.
I didn't think it would work. He doesn't seem that bad.
No, another thing I don't like about the film is the fact that Madame Moody is that prisoner that escaped.
Yeah.
When Sirius escaped in the last film, it was instant. As soon as he escaped, they knew a prisoner was missing.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere. This prisoner was missing from Azkaban for a year. It was in none of the papers. It was nowhere. No one was out looking for this killer.
Yeah.
He's a Time Lord, Karen. He can do anything.
It's a big plot, all right, but I'm sure that's not the only one. Like, I haven't really been able to come to terms with it, but does the whole story make sense? I mean, the story is Mad-Eye Moody puts Harry Potter's name in the Goblet of Fire so he can compete in this tournament. And it's the only reason he wants him there, so he can touch a trophy, which is a portal to...
Yeah.
That'll bring him to the graveyard.
There
would have been several...
Was there no other way he could go about it? Yeah.
Why did it have to be Harry Potter?
Because he wanted the blood of his greatest enemy, which is Harry.
How did they put the...
I'm sure there is a spell to send Harry to the graveyard. or just open a portal or something.
A porky could be anything.
You could have gone through the fucking the fireplace.
He could have touched. They could have put any old. They could put a manky boot on top of Harry Potter's bed. He would have touched it to remove it, and he would have been in the graveyard.
It's ridiculous.
How do you place that portal key without disappearing?
And guys, the sad part is it's not even the story that makes the least amount of sense.
Even
Because the 6th film takes the cake. It really does.
Also, why is Cedric so cryptic when Harry told him that the first thing was dragons, and that's straight up.
Yeah, why not?
Cedric's so cryptic. He's just like go to the prefect's bathroom
I know.
and mull it over in the water. Why not just say?
Take it into the bath with you and maybe
why not
something
just
will
say,
happen.
put
Wink,
it
wink.
in water.
Yeah, it could have been so much easier, and it's still they're not even because of that.
But maybe he started getting a bit competitive,
I think if you could, I think some could have been so much easier as a sentence you could use to sum up the entire Harry Potter franchise. So, to the surprise of no one, the budget for this film was 150 million, and its box office was 869 million. So, our next film on this episode is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So, Karen, take it away.
Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is the first film in the franchise, and it's about these 4 children. It's during the war, so they're sent to live in the countryside with this professor, and the youngest finds a magical land in an upstairs wardrobe, and her siblings don't believe her, but they eventually all end up going there, and there's an evil queen, and there's a battle to defeat the evil queen, who's pretty much making it always winter in this land, and there's this good lion called Aslan, and together they defeat the witch, and they live in Narnia for a while as kings and queens. That's all very lovely.
I really liked this film at first, then I got bored. Then I realised it was just a bunch of Christian propaganda.
Well, the book is written by C.S. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
It took him a decade to write.
It took him a decade to write this?
Yeah, it took him between 1939 to 1949 to write. The first version of it didn't even include Aslan. It was about kids called Anne, Martin, Rose, and the youngest was called Peter, and none of his friends liked it, so he set it on fire.
So it doesn't even exist anymore?
Doesn't exist anymore. He set it on fire. And the finished version, he was great friends with J.R.R. Tolkien. They used to meet and talk about books, and they set up a group called the Inklings, which was I think 18 writers in London who used to meet and discuss their work. J.R.R. Tolkien hated this book. He didn't understand it.
I don't blame him. I don't think it's good at all.
Tolkien is taste.
I did love it when I was a kid, and I liked the movie when I watched it the first time, but
Honestly, I don't get it. What's the appeal?
I still kind of like
just
it.
because it's a magical land.
It's
and
just
you're,
fantasy.
if you're a kid, a magical land just has
In your wardrobe,
I
it's
guess
fairly handy.
I'll give it this. The idea of walking through a wardrobe and stepping into another land is just it's a classic fantasy concept. It's just it's kind of just a perfect childhood sort of thing.
I love the start of the film, and it's something that the book doesn't have. We see the war and before they leave and the whole ride to the train station.
Yeah.
The book doesn't have any of that, and I think it's what really makes you get attached to the characters in the film, because it's
and
just
understand why they wanted to escape so much.
Yeah. What do you think of the child actors in this film?
Lucy,
I thought the 2 younger kids were way better than the older ones.
Yeah, fair enough.
Although I don't like Edmund's character, so it's hard for me to like Edmund's.
I think the
actor.
movie was very unfair to Edmund's character. I suppose it's because they leave out the fact, the food he's eating that the Queen gives him in the sleigh.
Turkish delight.
Yeah, the Turkish delight.
Ugh.
That's if you accept any food from the Queen, it kind of manipulates your mind. You keep wanting to eat it,
Okay.
and it makes you gullible. And that's why he was telling her
That
all
didn't
about
come
the family.
across in the film.
It didn't come across the film at all, which is why I didn't like Edmund until I read.
Especially to a kid.
Yeah, until I read the book and be like, yeah, he's no other choice. He's being completely messed over here.
Right. Okay.
He was still a bit spiteful
He still
towards
was
the
a bit
older brother.
spiteful.
He was really kind of wanting to be the man, and resented the fact that the older brother was kind of the man of the house.
Okay.
He did a bit.
If you wanted any indication that C.S. Lewis was weird, the fact that the kid could have any treat he wanted in the world and he picks fucking Turkish.
Turkish
Yeah.
delight. Ugh.
It's manky as shite.
Another thing I didn't like about the books was the fact that Father Christmas turns up and gives them all tools, not toys, and give them swords and stuff. But he tells Susan and Lucy that he doesn't intend them to fight in the war and they're only for protection. And the line is, wars are messy when women fight.
Oh no! Oh, that's not even the most sexist thing that C.S. Lewis ever wrote.
It really isn't.
Oh my god.
Bitches can't
Smash your
fight.
face in.
There's a later book where, you know, the older girl, her character, it's written in one of the later books that her character is no longer a friend of Narnia because she's, I think in the book it says something like she's now interested in stockings and lipstick and invitations. Basically, this girl's discovered sex.
I think
and
it's
so she's
the
Narnia
start of
anymore.
like the third one.
Is it?
I think so, because she's by the time the third book, the only children going back to Narnia are Edmund and Lucy and their cousin, who's a Muppet. But something like that.
C.S. Lewis sounds like a rave fag. He's into pure waifus.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like Aslan at all. In fact, I hate him.
I hated him so much more in the book, though. As much as you hate him in the film, he's so much worse in the book.
Well, first of all, he's a sexist fucking asshole. And also, because what's his point? He's kind of secondary to the whole story,
I think
really.
it's because of the fact that I think he needed him, because he didn't know, C.S. Lewis didn't know where the book was going until he decided, I'll put a lying Jesus into it.
Yeah, but that's...
That sounds like you're saying a lying Jesus. Jesus,
got
you liar.
The CGI, it's shit.
I thought it looked quite...
No, it hasn't held up that
No,
well.
and this is the thing, CG, you just, unless it's Avatar standard, unless it's spectacular.
Avatar, it's shite CG. Have you ever gone back and
No,
looked at it? It's
Avatar-
so rubbery.
I mean, let's not talk about Avatar, but unless it's just absolute top of the line standard, it ages really poorly. I mean, it's just, it has no, it's not that it's necessarily that bad, like it's perfectly watchable.
But I try not to.
But it doesn't have any effect. It really doesn't.
I try not to gripe on things for aging badly because everything's going to age. Like, but it at the time though, it didn't really look all that amazing either. So like, if something doesn't look amazing at the time, then yes, it's shite. But if it's
here's the
age,
thing.
it's just age.
Here's the thing, though. Like the best practical effects, in my opinion, never age. But even the best CGI effects age to some extent. I mean, compare this film. I know they're two completely different films, but compare the special effects to something like The Thing. I mean, the special effects in The Thing are just as striking then as now as they were then. But I mean, what are those two characters? Like they're gophers or badgers or something?
Beavers.
They're beavers.
Mr.
And yeah,
and Mrs. Beaver.
you don't see two beavers. You just see two, like, clumps of pixels.
Well, it's bad using CGI on furry things because CGI doesn't really get furry.
And fully
Yeah, and the
rendered
lions as well.
characters who appear
Aslan's
throughout the
all
whole film.
furry. Well, I still think they did a good job though from making it from the book to the movie.
Because it's...
How so?
Like they just made the movie a lot better, and like it is one of those books that most of us have read when we were little. It's a classic.
They probably toned down the religious stuff quite a bit.
They did. In the book, it's very, very, very
Jesus.
obvious.
Probably isn't obvious when you're a little kid though. So
It
it's like
probably is
simply
not. It's
Yeah,
simple
but
messaging.
If you're a little kid, you're probably having this thing read to you, right?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how
I know
little
if
you
my-
are.
if
Like
my
8
parents-
or 9, you'd be reading this book. Like I read this book when I was 8 or 9 by myself.
Okay. Did you have this book read to you?
No, I
Okay.
just read it last week.
I know if I was whatever age and my parents were reading this book to me, like, they'd have problems. Like, my mom would be genuinely creeped out by all the sort of hidden sort of religious meaning layered
I'd
into
be
this
more
film.
worried about the fact, like,
And she'd
what
be...
she said about the war, like girls fighting in the war and it being messy.
She'd also-
messy when women
Yeah.
fight.
She'd also be creeped out by that.
Sexism's a little worse than being a
just
fedora.
But
surprised
then
that-
I would use that to teach my child, if I had one,
I'm just surprised that's taken...
that it's wrong. That
Why
it's
did you
wrong.
point at me when you said
They're
my child if I
also-
had one?
They're
You are
also
my
so
child.
much more mean to
Aw.
Lucy in the book. Now, they're not very nice to Lucy when she's like talking about this whole imaginary world. But the worst in the book, they actually think that Lucy might be gone insane. They actually don't want the professor to find out in case they contact the father and have to, like,
Bring her to a mental
This
home.
sounds like creepy
Here's the
pasta.
thing, though.
But
There's
little
still...
kids do come up with stuff like that.
The thing that surprises me, though, is there's never, at least not that I know of, there's never really been a backlash to this story. Like, I don't remember anything any negative publicity when this film came out.
It was kind of innocuous.
And I didn't know any of this stuff until I actually saw the film.
About the
sexist
messaging
stuff, and
Well, I didn't realise it until, like, you know, because I haven't watched this film in years, and the last time I watched it I was quite young, so it wasn't until now when I have, like, you know, the common sense to be a bit like, oh, yeah.
Okay, but you know how people have reevaluated things like Song of the South and stuff because it's kind of racist. There's never been something like that for this story.
But we're doing it now. We're making it right.
It is now the social justice warrior age where you have to get offended by everything.
Well,
Yay!
I think it's mostly this book, because I never noticed it as much in the likes of Prince Caspian.
Okay. Have you seen...
I've seen Prince Caspian and I've read it, and Aslan isn't in a whole pile of it. So it's.
Do you think C.S. Lewis, Aslan was C.S. Lewis's like alter ego, and that's why Aslan's so racist, or not racist, sexist?
Aslan's Jesus.
Aslan's probably racist as well.
But no, I prefer.
He's a lion, so how racist could he really be?
I don't like them black poo bags.
Well, if he's a lion, then...
Like, if he's a lion, why would he hate a different, like,
Well, I
one
don't know
race
about
over
that.
another?
Okay, so the lion is the king of the jungle. That basically means he is the animal equivalent of being a straight, white, heterosexual man.
Oh.
If there ever was an animal that was going to be racist, it would probably be a lion.
So, like, what? He's
Or
racist,
how come
so,
Simba's
like,
daughter married the black lions then? Explain that.
That doesn't count, that's the second one.
I like the professor. I think he was a nice.
I think he's shit. I don't think he's shit. I just didn't like him.
Why not?
He's
He's the only one that, like, tells the kids to cop on and believe your sister.
I saw too much C.S. Lewis in this guy.
Do you think
Really?
he was a xenophobe?
Well, I mean, he was. You read The Magician's Nephew, didn't you?
Yeah, way
That's
back in the
him.
day. That's him?
That's him.
That's the kid from...
That's the kid. He's
Oh,
grown
right.
up. That's his house, and that's why he gets a bit like, oh, when he realizes that Lucy has found a land in upstairs wardrobes, but like,
And kind of
Oh.
hints to the others to
the,
believe her. Believe. That's the message of all magical things, though, isn't it? All these magical shows and movies and everything, it's like, believe.
and the message of religion too.
It's believe, but it's believe in this one specific thing that I want you to believe in.
Yeah,
because
but
I believe in it.
Prince Caspian isn't all that, unless I have to go back and look at all the subliminal messages in that, because you don't have the
Well, I don't think there's
I think
subliminal
you're taking the
messages,
Christian thing a little harsh. Like, he put in his Christian influences. Big deal.
Well,
He's not
I'd say
saying-
they're Christian messages, but they aren't Christian subliminal messages, to be fair.
But if this is kind of a whole, like, reincarnation, blah, 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 what the hell are Lucy and Edmund and Peter and Susan got to do with, like, are they the disciples?
Okay, no. It's not a complete 100%
Yeah, I
fantasy
know,
retelling
but I'm just
of
saying-
the
kind
scripture.
of,
But they're
because
kind of the disciples then,
yeah,
aren't
because
they?
Judas betrayed
Yeah.
And
the responsible, and that's what they,
Edmund-
which I hate, because even the book does it. It wasn't entirely his fault. He accepted Turkish delight.
Well, I've never understood. Like Pontius Pilate, I never thought it was his fault either. I always thought he got a bad rap. It's the weird thing.
You just love people who kill Jesus.
It's the
you
weird
fucking
thing about
atheist.
Christianity. It's totally unforgiving.
Well, anyway, did we like the movie?
No,
Did we
Yeah.
not like the movie?
I didn't like it.
I think kids would like it. Like,
It's a nice
it's a
film.
grand
I wouldn't
little
Yeah, it's grand.
Saturday evening movie.
I
to
wouldn't
watch
show
with
this
kids.
to my kids if I had kids.
Well, you don't
Yeah,
want
but
your...
you could explain the bits. I can imagine you lecturing your kids. Like,
Yeah.
if someone says anything, you'll never have Richard around. And then if anyone says anything that's slightly,
Religious.
no, slightly anything that isn't just, nice
Social
or
justice warrior.
yeah,
No,
you will probably
We'll have-
lecture them on, like, if someone says something about, like, women should make sandwiches as a joke, you'll probably have a full 3-hour lecture to your daughter
but
about
why
how
bother showing them something like this
feminism is
and
so
then
important.
explaining
I
Kids,
just
you are
wouldn't
not-
bother
when I could
explaining.
just show them something that they might actually like?
Kids, you are not
They
to read
might
the
like
line...
that.
Kids, you're not to read Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe, you're to read Reddit.
You're going to be one of these parents who, like, the kids can't do anything. They can't read certain things and they can't listen to certain music
Yeah.
because it'll say bad things about, like, women or something.
Is this a
No, I
delirious
wouldn't.
CD?
No, I wouldn't be like that. When I am sort of suggesting content for them to consume, it just wouldn't be something like this. They're still perfect. If I had kids, they would still be perfectly sort of, they'd have all the permission in the world to go watch this on their own. I'm just saying I wouldn't show it to them.
I kind of like the film.
I don't think it's going to turn kids into women beaters, or it's going to turn
Well,
them into
it didn't
militant
turn-
God
It's
hates
nothing.
fags
It's nothing
Christians.
about turning kids into women beaters. It's just giving them sort of the wrong ideas.
Well, I watched it 10 years ago and I'm fine.
Yeah, like we both are
You
feminists.
did bomb that abortion
We
clinic,
both
though,
think
Karen.
that, you know, women should have equal rights as men. And
I don't.
We're also both not particularly... I know I believe in God, but we don't go to mass every week and say, you know, you're a priest, so everything you say is right and
I do.
all that jazz.
I get it's a big movie. It's a grand big movie. It'll keep them entertained for a while. It'll be grand.
Yeah, it's a perfect big movie.
I think that's
I
the
miss
first time
big,
I
big
watched it.
movies.
They're still on.
I know, but like I don't watch them.
I don't understand why it's a perfect big movie is any kind of government, because there's many other much better big movies than you could watch. Well, anyways, I mean, regardless of what I say about this film, it made more than its money back. Its budget was 180 million and its box office was over 745 million. So our third film of this episode is one I've been meaning to watch for a decade now. It's Brokeback Mountain. Gloria.
Okay, so this movie I picked on a whim, but anyway, it's based in it starts in 1963, and it's Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal's characters find themselves on top of Brokeback Mountain for a summer together, and they grow rather close, and then they get drunk, and they both have to sleep in the same tent, and Jake Gyllenhaal basically grabs Heath Ledger's hand and makes him feel him up, and then without even kissing they have sex.
Jesus Christ.
It's important. Kissing is important.
If you say so.
And then they start this like 20-year long relationship where even though they both go off and get married and have kids and all that, they're still meeting up regularly to have sex. And it's just about their relationship and their relationship to Brokeback Mountain where they first met.
Mm-hmm.
It's very long.
It's long. I kind of liked it, but not really.
Do you know what? It should have been and could have been condensed. It needs to be shorter.
Absolutely.
And then it would be much more enjoyable. There was way too many scenes where just nothing was really happening. There were beautiful scenes in the background, but nothing was happening. You know, Heath Ledger was just sitting there, being all broody and sexy looking and not talking.
Well, I actually, for the first half hour or so, I really liked it. I remember we paused this film at one point. I think I went out to get something to drink.
Made popcorn.
I made popcorn, okay. And I remember saying to you at the time, this is actually pretty good. And basically, as soon as I said that, the whole Brokeback Mountain section of the film was over. And then it was just nothing but... It was just scene after scene of... But there was nothing, it was go nowhere stuff. It's my least favourite kind of film. The one where it's got one point to make and it just keeps belabouring the same point over and over again ad nauseum. It's like, we get it. They have to live a lie. They can't fit into this society. You do not need 2 hours and 14 minutes to tell that story.
But I don't think
it's a worthwhile story to tell, but hour and 45?
The person I felt most sorry for was Heath Ledger's wife. So Ennis's wife.
Ennis.
That's his character when she sees them kissing. And she actually seems more turmoil by the whole thing than he ever does.
I like that. I like the fact that.
But I know we're supposed compassion mostly for the two main characters. Well, I nearly felt more compassion for her.
Well, I think that's one thing I liked about the film. It is honest. You do feel sympathy for these two men because they have to live a lie. But at the same time, it doesn't sort of villainize their wives. I mean, this one guy's particular wife is torn over it. So it does go to great lengths to show how their homosexual relationship is genuinely hurting the people in their lives. So it is honest in that way.
It's so long. You spend every scene kind of as soon as the scene ends, kind of going, maybe it'll actually go somewhere now. Maybe the next scene something will actually happen, but it doesn't.
Like it was kind of repeating itself. So the Brokeback Mountain bit was good, like the first bit of the movie, and then all of a sudden it was in this loop of they were with one of them was with their wives, then they went fishing. Yeah. Which is a euphemism.
Then the other one got married.
Then the other one was with their wife. Then they went fishing. Then they had an argument because Jake Gyllenhaal wanted to be in a relationship, and Heath Ledger was like no because some man got his dick torn off, and that'll happen to us. And it just went in a loop like that.
But
the whole
I think
time.
it does eventually get to a point. It just takes it so long. Like the bit where they have that argument. The bit where, like, the scene where, like, it all comes out and basically the film's, you know, their character arcs. It's the scene that ties their character arcs in a knot, essentially. It's
but it took
I mean,
way
that's
too long to get there.
it's a great scene.
No,
I
but
really,
by the time you get there, do you really even care
They
anymore?
didn't need to do that many loops. We got the picture
Yeah.
even from the first, like, you know, argument about how, you know, I forget Jake Gyllenhaal's character because I just see Jake Gyllenhaal. His name, I forget his name. Jack Twist. So Jack Twist obviously is like really wants to actually live with Ennis and like have this relationship, but they fight over it because your man tells him the story about how his dad brought him to the field to see the man who had been like beaten up and killed and his dick torn off and everything, and how traumatizing that was. And like we got the picture then that Heath Ledger's character Ennis was never going to live with Jack Twist, like in a relationship wise. So why did they need to go 5 more times rounds of fishing to get the fucking point across? That's my problem with the movie.
I don't know. You mentioned that this film was great cinematography, and actually, I think it might have won an Oscar.
It did.
Did it?
Yeah.
For cinematography.
I don't know what it was for. I just know I won a couple of Oscars there.
And it's breathtaking for the first 30 minutes. For the first 30 minutes, like, every shot is a portrait. But after that, it's actually all kind of mundane, to be perfectly honest.
Well, that's
I
the
think-
countryside for you.
Was 10 years ago was a kind of a big deal to have anal sex in a big blockbuster movie. Everyone talks about this as being like the gay movie of the whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how important this film is in that regard. I know my brother was really sort of bothered about it just because of he felt it had been hyped up so much as something that was groundbreaking and so important, and it's going to break the stereotype of, you know, the most heterosexual thing in the world, which is an American cowboy, and oh my god, he's gay. And like he was really annoyed by that because he thought this stuff had been covered before. He didn't think it was groundbreaking whatsoever. I wish I could go back 10 years with the mind I have now and sort of soak up the zeitgeist at the time to see if this actually was important or not.
Philadelphia probably did it.
Was it
better.
because it was more mainstream than other? Like it wasn't kind of an it was big stars and it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was a kind of a mainstream movie rather than, you know, some independent movie or some kind of like movie that a smaller amount of people would have seen or would have had a smaller budget.
Do you think during the anal sex scene, and I'm not joking, how far do you think they went, the actors?
Flawless entry.
Because Heath Ledger, he was a method actor, man. He really was.
Jake Gyllenhaal sounded like he was getting it anyway, and like he was in pain rather than pleasure.
What were you saying during it? I remember we had a bit of an argument during this.
I'm not arguing, but I was like, do you know when
kissing.
They're doing the touching, and then your man seems like he's freaking. So Heath Ledger seems like he's actually freaking out at first. Like he's like, "What the fuck, you trying to make me touch your dick?" He doesn't say that, but his face does it all. But then they're like kind of pushing each other away, or he's pushing Jake Gyllenhaal away, but Jake Gyllenhaal keeps coming at him. But then they look like they're about to kiss, and then they don't kiss, and he just bends him over and sticks his dick in him, and he spits on his hand and like to lube it up. That is disgusting.
That infuriated my brother.
He doesn't even kiss him. Like, come on.
Why is that important?
Oh, because how can you have sex with someone without kissing them?
But you are only sort of familiar with heterosexual sex, and this is homosexual sex, which might be completely different. Foreplay might not exist.
Not for women. Women gets engines going.
Would you kiss someone if you just ate their arsehole?
But he didn't eat his arsehole.
Would you kiss someone if he sucked your dick first?
He didn't. There was none of that. There was no foreplay. It was literally like bend over, you cunt. Come on.
Well, maybe they were just gagging for it.
It escalated way too
quickly.
It was like, oh my god, what are you doing to? Okay.
Well, they didn't have time to take him out to dinner. Like
they're such gruff sort of men. They're really manly men. I don't see them getting pleasure from kissing.
They did loads of kissing after that.
But
there was plenty of scenes with them kissing.
That's
how the wife caught it.
But after they'd gotten it out of their systems first. Imagine
it was an icebreaker.
So basically, kissing is not as important to men.
Well, no, not to gay men. Maybe, or at least not to these gay men. I'm just hypothesizing.
I've seen
here.
that
I
in a
don't
couple
know.
of other sex scenes before on TV, and I still like, even between heterosexual sex, and I just don't get it. I don't understand how you can have sex without kissing someone. It just doesn't. It doesn't bode
Yeah,
well
but
with
this
me.
isn't about you. It's about what they want.
Yeah, but that's my opinion on the whole matter. That it's unrealistic because in real life there would
Wait,
be at
how would
least
you
a
know?
kiss. The acting was and
Yeah.
the cinematography was just
Well,
they were
For the
both-
first.
Yeah, for the first act.
Yeah, but they were just really, really good. Like you can't fault the actors, all of them. You know, even the supporting actors like Anna Hathaway and Heath Ledger's wife. I can't remember her name. but
Michelle Williams.
Michelle Williams. They were all brilliant, brilliant actors.
I would concur with that.
Yeah,
I would say this film is less than the sum of its parts. Fantastic acting, really good writing for the most part, some beautiful cinematography, but you put it all together and it's far less than compelling. It really isn't, and it's too long.
Because it's just too long. I think it would have been such a better movie.
Put a
Condensed.
half an hour of it somewhere, anywhere.
The constant loop that you didn't need to see because
Yeah.
it was
It
confirmed.
also showed the struggle of television, like when it was first introduced to the home, because you have the two scenes where your man's new wife is pretty much screaming in the kitchen, there's a roughness, and all he kind of does is kind of stand up, still looking at the TV, kind of going.
Oh, he just seemed like an arsehole. I'm sorry, but you're not even our boyfriends. But if she was screaming, if like Karen and Richard were in the kitchen here together, and Richard and Karen was like, get out, get out, get out, get away from me, would you not rush in and see what the hell Richard was trying to do to Karen?
Nah.
Yes, you would.
Especially when the man knows that the ex-husband is in there with his wife.
like,
I mean, it's not any level of...
and
like,
she was pregnant. It looked like she was pregnant.
Yeah, she was, because they had a
Like,
second
he
child.
just seemed like an arsehole. Like, man up, go in and knock Heath Ledger out for, or at least attempt to, or see what the fuck's going on.
And then you also had the scene with the kid trying to watch the game while
yeah.
trying to eat dinner.
I like that
That's
scene.
been 3 hours cooking.
Yeah, I think Jake Gyllenhaal's character finally found his balls towards the dad in that scene.
So the budget was, all things considered, fairly small, 14 million only, and its box office was 178 million, which is not surprising because when this film came out, I remember it was everywhere. There were posters and trailers and ad campaigns for it everywhere. And it's one of those films. It's one of those like sort of Phantom Menace that you, even if you haven't seen, you know all about it just because
you
of
kind
how
of-
prominently it was marketed.
It was different to what I expected, though. I expected it to be more, I don't know, shocking or something. It sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like it was shocking back 10 years ago.
Well, I'll just say this in the film's defense: this film isn't about the shock value of gay cowboys. It really isn't.
But I know that now.
That was my brother's fear about it. He thought it was that, and it really isn't. It's a totally honest, it's a totally sincere film. It's just not the best film ever made. So moving on to our last film of this episode. It's one of my favorites. It's Serenity. Okay, so Serenity is a sequel to a 2002 TV show that aired on Fox called Firefly. It was a sci-fi show that was written and sometimes directed by Joss Whedon about this band of outlaws that live on a spaceship. It's a Serenity class. Sorry,
Firefly
it's
class.
a Firefly class spaceship called Serenity, and they live in this sort of hybrid between sort of sci-fi and Western world, where there's sort of centralized planets that have sort of law and order, and they formed an alliance, and then there are these sort of outer rim planets. They're kind of like, they're frontier planets. They play by their own rules. And there's sort of the series is sort of, it's set after a war between these two different societies, and the film picks up about a year after the events of the series. There are these two fugitives that are on the run from the Alliance. A doctor and his sister River. River was captured by the Alliance and had experiments performed
She
on her.
wasn't captured, she was sent to school.
Yeah, okay. But they were performing experiments on her. And this guy, her brother broke her out of the institute where she was being experimented upon, and they took refuge aboard Serenity, and the film picks up with them still on the run from the Alliance, and it's about them discovering why the Alliance is so desperate to get River back, about the secret, the cover-ups that the Alliance the atrocities that the Alliance has been involved in. I really, really like this film.
Yeah, it's great.
I think it's everything that sort of the Star Wars prequels should have been. This came out the same year, I think, as Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
I've never watched Firefly, by the way, and I did like the movie, and I will probably watch Firefly now, but I have to say that it was a bit kind of like, what's going on? It took me a few minutes to catch up, whereas you guys already had it like down. But
Well, this is the
I think it's because I didn't watch the series.
But this is that's like the equivalent of, watching the last episode of Breaking Bad without seeing anything before it, like, or watching the end of Evangelion without watching Evangelion.
I could still get, I could still get to where you were, but it just took me a bit longer.
Okay.
Like, this was a conclusion, not a thing for new fans.
We were explaining the odd thing to you. Do you think you could have enjoyed this film if you were watching it on your own?
Yeah, probably not as much. But I liked
if you went in completely blind.
There was like humour in it, there was action. I really liked the humour and the wit in it. I liked Kaylee's character a lot. Like the fact she was motivated to live because she thought she was going to have sex was brilliant. That was like one of my favourite bits of the movie. And she was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna live now. Fuck this shit. Like,
to hell with this, I'm gonna live.
Kaylee is the best girl in Firefly, and if you disagree, you shit taste.
One thing that was so refreshing about this film, and it's just such a shame that it's a rarity these days, but real sets, real locations, real actors in real costumes, and CGI only used when it's appropriate. I mean, just compare this film to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, or even Goblet of Fire. It's so much more compelling just because of the fact that nearly everything is real. Like when they go to the planet Miranda, that was a real location that they scouted. They found this place that looked a bit futuristic. They dressed it up a bit. They added a bit of high contrast filter to it, and it's a real place that they actually really went to, and it's so much more effective. I mean, imagine would that scene have been a tenth as effective if, when they'd gotten off the ship, they stepped into a green screen background?
Of course
was
not.
clearly all
CGI
CG.
is never going to be as compelling as real life.
What do you think of Chiwetel Ejiofor as the operative, the villain?
He's fairly cool.
He's got great motivation.
Islam. Yeah. Hurts others to show his way of peace or something.
You got really mad when he said something.
What did I say again?
No, Gloria.
Me?
When he said, I want a world without sin. Is that it?
Oh yeah, he wanted a world without sin, and to achieve that he wanted to kill loads of innocent people, and that did piss me off because that's actually the way a lot of religions are. That, like, even Catholicism, it's like we have to beat the sin out of you. You're gay, so we have to beat the sin out of you. You had sex, or you wanked off, or you did this, or you adulterated, whatever. So we have to beat the shit out of you. So we have to sin to beat the sin out of you.
I thought you were getting mad because he thought that line was a bit tacky.
No, I was just getting mad at the concept.
It's a contradictory concept.
And it is like
I want a world where no one kills people, so I'm going to go and kill tons of people.
But this is one of the great things about the villain is he knows he has no place in this world. He knows that he is a means to an end. And I'd say
he changes his mind once he finds out the truth.
And that's actually yet another thing I really liked about this film is it's so much more it's so much more effective. The fact that instead of just, here's the thing, they have Mal and the operative have this big fight with this CG generator down below them, and it's a total red herring because you see this thing and you instantly think one of them's going into that. One of them's going to get punched in the face. He's going to go off the railing. That's
like
probably going to be the operative, yeah. Or the ending to basically every action movie ever. And instead of doing that, and this is why Joss Whedon's so clever, the climax is instead Mal convincing the operative to come around to his way of thinking. He completely exposes these fallacies that the operative has in his head. Like, he exposes the fact that the Alliance is not a good thing, and his ideals are not something to strive for. And it's just so much more interesting than just killing him. So this film kills off a couple of beloved characters from the TV series. Two.
One was completely
Shepherd.
100% unnecessary.
Yes, and that was Shepherd.
Which one do you think was unnecessary?
Shepherd.
Dash, the pilot.
Oh,
That's
Wash.
not his name. What?
Wash.
Wash, sorry.
Wash.
I thought it sounded like
I
Dash.
think they should
Right
have killed
here.
off Wash. I think they probably could have done it better.
They could have done it. If it was a justifiable death, it felt like, it wasn't a bit like, oh, we have to kill him now, so here, Spike.
By the way, I think the way they did kill him off was fine. I think Joss Whedon, he went too far out of the way to be unpredictable. I think he kind of stood in his own way a little bit. I think a better death is during the shootout. Wash just gets grabbed and gets killed. Gets torn probably. That would have been better
Raped
actually.
and eaten.
Instead, out of nowhere.
If he was going to die, he should have been raped and eaten by the Reavers.
What do you guys think of the final scene? I thought it was really exciting.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I think
The Reaver scene?
the whole part, like the space battle and then the Reaver scene. I just think, again, when you have a clearly established, well-defined
I
That
like-
was one of my favourite fight scenes ever, is the Reavers versus River. Because she's so elegant. And
She's
so
actually a
graceful
dancer in real life.
by action
so-
and killing them while she looks like she's just doing a dance and just killing them.
But here's the
I
thing.
thought it was beautiful.
I mean, compare that scene to the final scene from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is just so dull. Just a well-defined, clearly established threat beats CGI just every time.
Well, I do have one flaw for someone who didn't watch the Firefly series.
I'm sure there are a couple of flaws, but go
Just
on.
from listening to you guys saying, "Oh, this is this person and this is this person," and they just seemed to me like they were trying to stuff a whole series into a film,
Yeah,
like trying to get every character kind of that they could checked off. Like that person
And
did
there
an
are a lot
appearance,
of
that
characters.
person did.
but to
Yeah.
be fair, they did a decent enough job.
Yeah, I'm not saying they didn't, but for someone who hasn't seen the series, it's a bit like, okay, so there's 5 main characters. Oh wait, now there's another one. Now there's another one. Now there's another
It's
one.
not for people who haven't seen the show. It's a conclusion.
Yeah, but
Well, it's clearly written to appeal to people who haven't seen the show as
they
well.
wouldn't
They were
have
probably made
just
to do
made
that.
a movie.
Well, they should have been made to do that.
They wouldn't have just made
I
a
don't like
movie
that.
to conclude the series. They would have just made another series or a 1 hour special to conclude a show. They wouldn't have made a whole movie to conclude just a show that ended up getting cancelled.
Another thing I think they had to do just for the sake of the plot is that, since when are Simon and River no longer crew? He has specifically said several times in the series, once they've gotten a certain point, that the Doc is part of the crew.
But then
he does
they
jobs
abandoned
and-
the ship, so at that point they had revoked their crew status. The cancellation of the series is a real shame. I just think speak to anyone in on Earth and they'd say there's an 80 to 90% chance that they either like Firefly or would like Firefly. There's so much to appeal to everyone, I think, in this series.
They possibly just didn't
But-
give it enough of a chance.
But Fox did not give it a chance whatsoever. I mean, first of all, their marketing campaign for Firefly was dire. They promoted it as a sort of a straightforward sort of action sci-fi thing, a little bit like Stargate, which is not at all what it was like. And
which
then
is more niche than what it is.
yeah, but it was more character driven, and they aired the episode. And they aired the episodes out of order, and they didn't even air every episode, and they never gave it a chance. So basically, you've got this series, and you tune in thinking you're going to see one thing, and you're not. And if you continue to watch, the story makes no fucking sense because the episodes are aired out of order. So yeah, they never gave it a chance. It was doomed from the very beginning. Same with this film. The film received almost no marketing. It was given a very limited release. It was not marketed to the right people. It was pegged as a film that was not going to make its money back. So the studio felt, Jesus, we better cut our losses as soon as possible and not put as little money into its release as we can, so we don't lose that much. So they never even gave it a chance to make its money back.
Did it lose a lot of money?
It lost $1 million. Its budget was $39 million and its box office was $38 million. So there goes any chance of there
And
being
it
another
actually is a
film.
good movie, and like it's a pity.
No, it's a damn shame, and
But-
there's no reason for this. If there's so many sci-fi franchises out there that have been successful, there's no reason Firefly couldn't have been one of them. If they had marketed to the right people, released it properly, not aired episodes out of order, just given it a fucking chance instead of cutting off its legs before it even began. I mean, we could still be seeing Firefly episodes and Firefly films to this day.
I don't get it though, because when they cancelled Firefly, they realised how big of a following it could have. And the whole point of Serenity was to catch that massive following it knew it had, and then just didn't do it.
Yeah, here's the thing. Every single time the executives have been taken out of the equation, when they've had nothing to do with its distribution, when it's just been on DVD, it's done really well. Like, DVD sales for Serenity have been really good. The reason Serenity was made is because the DVD sales for Firefly were fantastic. So this thing can make money. Maybe it's not cinema material. Maybe you just release it straight to DVD or have a video on demand or something.
Firefly back, but it'll have to wait till the casting and shoots are over. But would you be devastated, because you obviously watched Firefly, would you be devastated if they brought it back and it wasn't as good? Like, either, the actors have kind of lost their chemistry, or the lines weren't as funny, or the action wasn't as good.
No,
would it not devastate you? At least
it wouldn't devastate.
high.
It wouldn't devastate me, because if they brought it back and it wasn't very good, but then at least we could all know that we could finally put this behind us. So Serenity, guys, what do you think?
It's great.
Yeah, it was good.
To be honest, I wanted to hate this series, but I can't. It's good.
I loved it. Okay, so guys, what was your favourite film and your least favourite film this episode? I know what my one was. My favourite, obviously, is Serenity, and my least favourite was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
My favourite was Serenity. And yeah, same. Lion, Witch and Wardrobe was my least favourite, but...
Karen?
My favourite Serenity. My least favourite is Brokeback
Karen, so you fucking combo breaker.
If it was like 45 minutes shorter, maybe, but no. I mean, I was
Well, we had a good laugh watching it.
Richard?
Same as you and Glow.
Think we could have had an episode where
we had to be contrarian.
Karen,
you
ruined
edgy,
it all. You had to be awkward.
you edgy contrarian hipster.
I wasn't going to lie to conform to your beliefs.
Hipster. Fucking hipster.
Anyway.
Okay, so that does it for this episode of the Decade Old Podcast. We'll be back in our next episode with a review of the first quarter of 2006. We have a Facebook page, so it would be nice if you give us an old like. But until the next episode, it's goodbye from me, Conor Geary.
Bye from me, Gloria.
Goodbye from me, Karen.
Goodbye for me. I need to use the jacks.
What? Yeah, you were like, this is my podcast. You might have been just being you pretending to be.
I never wanted to do this.